Brighton 2, Manchester City 1 is where we start our Premier League roundup. But of course we have to start there because Pep Guardiola has lost 4 games in a row for the first time in his career.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation.
Panic on the streets of Manchester, it would appear.
What's the context for that, though?
Brighton hosted them.
Is it quite rare that is it quite rare for a team to lose 4 in a row? Probably not. I mean, I support Portsmouth. I've got absolutely no perspective whatsoever.
It does massively depend on who that team is. But if it's a Pep Guardiola side, well, I mean, you say a modern-day Manchester City side, then it is. It's the first time it's ever happened.
The last time they won was using their Southampton voucher, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, which is a while ago now.
Which was only 1-0.
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought Manchester City were absolutely appalling in the second half. Was really noticeably quite bad.
Well, this is the funny thing, isn't it? Because, as you say, like you've alluded to, then the first half they were good, like they were against Sporting in the Champions League.
Yeah,
and it was a mad sort of few minutes into the second half against Sporting, and even Amorim himself said, perhaps a bit modestly, Andy Brassel reckoned, but sometimes there's things in football you can't legislate for. But the fact is, they beat them 4-1, so you have to give an enormous amount of credit there.
Definitely.
Whereas Brighton, it was a few tweaks from Hurtzler. And Man City looked distinctly second best. I mean, the midfield. I know they've had injuries. I know they've got a lot of injuries and so on, but they've still got a bloody good team.
Yeah.
And the way that they were sort of, right, we're going to play the high line because that's what we like to do, but we're not really going to sort of press that much. I don't think Brighton could believe their luck.
I also think that, down the right-hand side, Man City's right-hand side particularly, I mean, they've been pretty vulnerable. And Carl Walker looks like he might well be for the Knackers yard at this point.
I don't like that.
The last 3 or 4 times I've seen him play, we don't want to believe it.
Okay.
It's like,
cut me a deal.
Let me give you, I will, but let me just give you a quick analogy. Right. At the start of Scream 2, the movie, where someone gets killed.
Obviously.
And then people
is it in the bogs?
It might be in the bogs.
You're thinking of Jurassic Park.
No, it's not at the start.
They're both in the bogs.
Knife
yeah, it is.
Okay,
in the cinema, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple of people start getting killed. And some people in the town start going, it's happening again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some people go, no, it's not happening again. It's just
it's not happening again.
With Carl Walker against Brighton, I thought, it's happening again.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Because the first time we saw this was against Fulham, and you go, okay.
And he's also as clumsy as a Scream Killer as well at the moment.
He's injured. Okay, so the deal I would like to cut with the footballing universe is, can we turn it into like a Luke Shaw situation where
or a Michael Owen or a Mickey Owen?
Luke Shaw does play in the final. He actually does okay and stuff. And basically, as long as he turns up for England in tournaments and he's still Carl Walker there, I don't really mind what he does elsewhere.
He's still Carl Walker there.
Yeah. I don't think you get to choose that, mate.
What we did with Luke Shaw.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Right. Who's heard from him since?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he's playing COD, apparently.
He'll be ready for the World Cup.
I also thought that when you see Man City lose a game, you don't normally see them lose a game in this kind of way. You see them lose a game when they can't overthink it, or they're a bit unlucky, or they dominate but they can't score and they get hit on the break, whatever. Yeah. They just, throughout that second half, from what I saw, they just looked, as you said, the word you use is the word I was going to use, which is second best. Mm-hmm. And I know that Rodri is missing. And I know he's a massively important player, and quite literally the best player in the world according to the most recent Ballon d'Or. But you still need, if you've got a team with the experience of that manager and the resources they've got, I don't personally think it's good enough to say, and they're not saying this, but a lot of people are using Rodri as a kind of excuse. I don't think it's reasonable to say we get whooped by Sporting, we get beaten by Bournemouth, we get beaten by Brighton because of Rodri. I mean, it can't just be that, because they should better bring someone in to deal with that.
Look, let's start with the midfield three of Kovacic, Gundogan, Phil Foden.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not good enough, is it?
No. Haaland in front of them, you know what I mean? So, I understand that Simpson Pusey's, David.
Why is he picking him? He had Aki on the bench.
Well, I mean, maybe he thinks to himself, look, he's...
Kanji on the bench as well.
Yeah, well, perhaps he feels that then maybe not fit enough. Maybe he is trying to manage it here in terms of the minutes and thinks, look, if they're not quite at the races yet, then away to Brighton... we should have enough. Yeah. We should be okay, because then we've got other games and so on. So Guardiola, of course, is we think of him as a fullback, but he's a very, very good defender. So, okay, he'll go in there. Kovacic will provide a bit of protection. And actually, Simpson Pusey is clearly a very, very talented player. We know how many players that academy produces. Think about the talent that doesn't make it there, and we're going to talk about one of them in a bit when we talk about Ipswich, but other people, if you go, oh no, this guy has come through the academy and has actually signed first team contracts, that is a very special player already.
But he also played 90 minutes away at Sporting in midweek.
Yes.
They got whooped and he picks him again.
Having just made his debut the week before against Spurs.
Yeah, I think it's odd.
Well, okay, so
which was League Cup, to be fair, but
sure. But so that was, he came on during the League Cup game to make his debut. The thing about Simpson Pusey's appearance here, I think, is I still think Pep is thinking long game here.
Yeah.
Because it's generally about this time of the season, leading into Christmas, that he does ring the changes and keep players fresh for, I suppose, the home straight of the season. Yeah. And I suppose with Ake and Akanji on the bench, that's sort of what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Even slowly bringing back Bernardo Silva, and obviously De Bruyne comes on yesterday as well. There was on Saturday. It kind of played to that. If you looked at it, I suppose, in the cold light of day, it plays to that thinking forward bit. But yeah, as you say, it feels like there should be an addressing of the now, really, because one of the things I found quite striking was Brighton did brilliantly not to panic with the opportunities they got given. Because sometimes when you play Manchester City, one opportunity goes begging you, and you're thinking,
that's that then,
that's it.
Yeah, but I think that what you just said there is normally the case, but people sniff something against Man City at the moment. People know that they're not there. So that context is important.
Yeah, so that's the point I was going to make. But they felt like they knew another opportunity was around the corner.
Yeah, people know that they can give Man City a bloody nose, or even worse. I mean, again, think about my team Fulham when they went there, and you think, I lost 3-2, could have got something. Oh, but it's Man City. You kind of go, oh, that was a chance to get at least a point or a famous result.
I also. The centre-back conversation is interesting, particularly given the context of him of Guardiola having a big old rant at Van Hecker after the game, which was really strange, given that... I think there's something quite odd about how often Guardiola goes after opposition players at full time.
Well, I mean, Redmond's the obvious one.
Yeah, but it's happened a load of times. It's happened. It's happened. This is the second time it's happened this season.
Yeah,
and I don't think you see that many other managers do it. And then after the game, obviously Guardiola's asked about it, and he said, he wanted him to be stronger when it's going up against Haaland, and he's a big lad, he shouldn't be throwing himself on the floor, whatever. And then he says, I congratulate him for playing a good game. And Van Hecker is having a good season, and he's a good player. But the whole thing just seems a little bit passive aggressive.
Yeah, but that is Pep, isn't it? Do you not think though that when we see managers who are ticked off after a loss, which you can understand being in that position, and they have to face the media, and especially if they're under pressure, Jurgen Klopp is that kind of jovial, avuncular kind of chap. But if he'd lose a game, he would be visibly a bit pissed off, because why would you be happy?
Yeah, but he does the good old fashioned traditional thing and goes after a load of journalists, which I think we can all get behind.
Exactly. And
that's what they're there for.
Right, exactly.
You can't mistreat journalists.
Yeah, that's true.
Van Gaal's the same, all these types of characters. But Pep Guardiola, I don't think he's ever really truly mastered the
social whims,
the art, possibly, but the art of being the pissed off manager. He's very prickly, isn't he? Sometimes he responds in a very odd way.
But you said that Van Hecker seemed to take it really well. Like he said after the game that we were just speaking about the foul at the end in the box, and he congratulated me and said I said they had a great team, and I think he just does it.
He won the game though, so he's free to say whatever he wants.
That's what he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference with Van Hecker. Again,
I see what you're saying. Right, okay.
Yeah, because he's calm about it. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Where if they hadn't won the game, you might have. Well, they probably wouldn't.
Well, he does it, but to be fair to Guardiola, we've seen he does it both ways, doesn't it?
But I just think Guardiola, it's what you go all the way back to when he managed Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Ibrahimovic obviously is a rather tricky customer, let's be fair, but Ibrahimovic would get so annoyed because Guardiola wouldn't sort of confront him or wouldn't sort of have it out with him, and he would, it was all very passive aggressive.
I wonder if that would be the case now though, because it was a long time ago that.
It was a long time ago, and clearly Pep knows how to keep a squad happy. That's one of his strengths as a manager. I think sometimes his man management.
Because I think they just all think he's a genius.
Well, they think he's a genius, but also like some of the behind the scenes stuff we've seen, he does come across as quite like, to use that word again, jovial at times, and I think the players respond. Clearly, the players respond to it. They tap into his ideas. You can't have a squad that big with that amount of quality, and everyone buys into it, and everyone seems pretty happy. So sometimes his man management is overlooked because of the genius side of things. But everyone has their flaws. Everyone has their hang-ups. And with Guardiola, that kind of passive-aggressive sometimes just doesn't... I don't know. He's not that sort of forward-facing and straight-out sort of confrontational type of chap, and maybe that's what you're seeing there.
Yeah, maybe. Can I just spare a compliment or two for Brighton?
I think you should,
because they were excellent. To come back like they did and win was incredible, given they went behind. And the thing I wanted to say specifically was how good a job has the ownership done at Brighton for them to still be doing this? I mean, we're talking about them today. They're 6th in the Premier League. I mean, they're right up there. Yeah. 4 points off second. They're only not 3rd on goal difference, right? And the amount of times in the past you see a club that is not traditionally a big club that's had time in the doldrums and gone up and had a bit of a day in the sun, and as soon as one piece from that jigsaw is taken away, I mean, look at Leicester. For example, win the Premier League, it starts to fall apart, and they've been up and down since. Like, there's been two or three occasions now where Brighton, you could have thought, okay, what's going to happen for them next because they've lost a manager or a big player or whatever. Yeah. If you extend it out to key players, it's a lot more than 2 or 3 times. Yeah. Yet their recruitment on managers and players is absolutely, it's almost unrivaled given the resources they've got.
I would agree with you, yeah. The way that
it's just incredible.
They're not just a mainstay in the Premier League, they're a top half team in the Premier League. Yeah. They've been in European competition recently, and they have ambitions to do it again. And it is a great example to show people that actually in football you can come through the lower leagues, you can make it to the Premier League, but you've got to be canny and all that kind of stuff. I completely and utterly agree with you.
Every single big player that's come through or been a part of Brighton in the last however many years has somehow had to move on, right? Whether it's a Pascal Gross going back to Dortmund, or
McAllister,
a Caicedo, McAllister going for big money,
Cucurella,
Robert Sanchez, the goalkeeper, gone to Chelsea. Yves Bissouma, he's had to leave. Trossard had to leave. They've chosen to leave, etc., etc. Like, the turnover, when set against the maintenance of incredible standards on and off the pitch, it's actually remarkable. And I don't think it's talked about enough, chiefly because there are far bigger teams out there and far sexier narratives. So people get interested in the big transfer move, but they don't really think about what's left behind. And as soon as De Zerbi said he wanted to go, they have this manager who, really, let's be totally honest, most people listening to this show wouldn't have heard of.
Yeah, totally.
And he comes in, slots in, he's super young, and there's any real excuse people to jump on him and say he's not going to do the job. And here we sit here now, they've got 19 points from 11 games, and it's taken for granted, I think. They've only lost 2 games this season. Yeah, with that amount of upheaval.
Totally, yeah.
And can we have a moment for Carlos Baleba as well?
We can.
Just... what a wonderful player. They had him last season, and he played, about I think 9 or 10 games in the Premier League, and now he comes off the bench and he just completely changes games.
Well, he did, yeah.
It's so exciting,
yeah. At his age as well, yeah.
I mean, Herzl obviously takes credit for the subs and all the rest of it, but you've also got to give immense credit for the players who've then got to go and do it.
Yeah. He's been really consistent. Baleba this season has been good. I agree, he's been decent. To be honest, they've got. They've got so many consistent players, so many players. I mean, Van Hecke, the aforementioned Jan-Paul Van Hecke, he's just been so solid. It comes from, for me, maybe I just don't know enough about football, but he comes from nowhere, and he just slots in there. He's a Premier League operator at the top level. It's amazing.
Yeah, whichever way you slice it, they're doing an incredible job. They've got a striker who had injury worries, who's kind of in the form of his life, in Danny Welbeck. Oh, yeah. And they've got a manager who they've, as Luke said, they've really taken a punt on, who's younger than that striker.
I know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Glorious stuff. But they did beat Man City, and is there this chat that this could be the season they don't win the league? I mean, Pep said after 7 years winning 6 Premier Leagues, maybe 1 year another team deserves it. But
it's a nice thing to be able to say, isn't it?
It is a nice thing to be able to say.
It's a little reminder. What I like about it is a little reminder.
Yeah.
You can ask me those questions, but I am going to remind you what's happened.
Prosecutor somewhere being like, that many is it? We have to take off.
That many. And I think actually...
Because
if you win it this year, you get to keep it.
I think actually as well, what we talked about in the past before this Guardiola era, when we talked about it in the context, say Man United under Ferguson, the big thing is the maintenance of the intensity. Like people put so much energy into winning a league title, and then can they repeat it the next season? Because there's almost a subconscious release of pressure. And I think what Guardiola's done more than anyone else, obviously, is he's been able to make that not just winning games a habit, but winning trophies a habit, which is an incredible achievement. But of course, it can't go on forever. It might do. It might carry on this season. We don't know yet. But they're 5 points off it. Losing 4 games in a row, as you say, hasn't happened to Guardiola before. Doesn't tend to happen to Man City at all. So they've got a break to work it out. As Pep said himself, he's using the international break to clean his head, which makes it sound like he's just giving it a good old scrub.
I love it. Yeah. Or he's plugging himself into a machine and just like.
It reminded me of the Gillette advert when the guy's shaving his head. That's what it felt like to me.
Did it also feel like when De Bruyne came on yesterday, it was a bit like, the scene when, say, like a fugitive's on the run. And they find a bit of clothing from said fugitive and they give it to like a really ferocious dog to have a sniff. That was a bit like De Bruyne. Have a little walk around for 15 minutes.
Yeah, have a little sniff.
Get us into the place and we'll see you in March.
See if you can sniff out an assist or a goal.
No, but just like for the longer term, being like, just get angry.
Yeah.
He was sniffing the ball actually before he came on.
There you go.
Get used to it.
When you said about Man City don't often lose 4 games in a row, well, it was the first time since 2006, we should say.
Who was that under? Stuart Pearce.
Stewie Pearce.
You can always rely on him.
Eh?
Absolutely.
How about that?
Yeah. Listen, he's got a record at Man City as well.
He does.
It's his club as well.
It's his club as well. They all go into the narrative that makes them what they are.
He was fed up with people just talking about him putting David James on as a striker.
I know.
He wants people to know. He's doing the rounds this morning because he wants people to know that he's also lost 4 games in a row.
That's when him and Pep are mentioned in the same breath,
Exactly.
of course. But Man City, though, despite losing a game, I mean, we lost twice in the league, of course, which is just one more than Liverpool. They're 5 points behind the Reds, who beat Aston Villa 2-0, of course. Again, they're just plodding along Liverpool very nicely, going about the business. I know Villa themselves are in a bit of a bad patch at the moment, but they've got to be taken. And Darwin Núñez got the goal, and obviously Mo Salah got the second one. Again, Salah is just going about his business, thinking, do you know what? If I go along like this, we'll probably win the league, and I'll probably be best player of the season, something like that. Obviously, a lot can change, but that just seems to be it, doesn't it, Vish? Just nice and easy, steady shit while others are dropping points. Lovely old job.
Yeah, very chilled, very organised. I think Arne Slot has clearly got a really firm grasp on his squad, let alone team, because
it's a slot factor. It's the slot factor.
It is a slot factor. He didn't necessarily need to do it against Villa, but there've been times over the last month or so where his substitutions have come on and changed the game essentially, which shows a lot of both courage in, I suppose, his decision making, but also. Yeah, he just knows exactly what is at his disposal. I mean, despite what we've talked about with Man City, the big game comes at the start of December when they entertain Man City at Anfield. But yeah, they all look very comfortable. Everyone look a lot more cohesive, and they seem to be enjoying it a lot more than they did last season. And
that's interesting. And you could say that about Salah, because there was obviously a little bit of tension at times.
Yeah.
And was he going to move? Was he not? And that'll still be there. But he. Is doing Mo Salah things. But
I suppose the really important thing when you reflect on how things were last season is that by Jurgen Klopp's, by his own estimation, he was exhausted.
Yeah.
And, when he's in that state, there are obviously certain things he doesn't do. And when you bring in someone like Arne Slot, who obviously has some pedigree, but ultimately knows it's a big job, and just has a lot more energy around the place. We're not even necessarily talking about a match day or those, 90 minutes on the sideline. It's in training and everything like that. And, the change of hands has worked brilliantly, because while there's a lot of talk of, he's still using a lot of the same players, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, he's getting a different kind of tune out of them.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about the job Klopp did at Liverpool, I think in some way it's comparable to Wenger at Arsenal, Ferguson to Manchester United. In some way, obviously, they were there a lot longer.
Yeah, it is. I think so.
A little bit. Because he took that club from, they were obviously doing all right, but, in terms of trophies, but not the Premier League when he took over. But they really needed a big old boost. And it doesn't have the history and the longevity as the other two. But the point I'm kind of labouring to say is that when he was going to leave, it was always going to be like, what's going to happen post-Klopp. And obviously Ferguson and Wenger, well, more so Wenger, left Arsenal in not great. It wasn't terrible, but they weren't winners. The winning mentality had kind of gone.
It went on way too long.
Yeah, it went on way too long and all that kind of stuff. And so there are huge differences between those, between Klopp and the other two. But in terms of a contingency plan, in terms of what happens after, Liverpool have just responded so well. And again, it is testament to what Klopp left Slot.
But it's also a testament to Slot, right? Because
yes, as well. And the recruitment at the club and all that kind of stuff. I said this a few weeks ago.
I mean, you could probably level exactly what I just said about Brighton to Liverpool so far. It's just a little bit earlier on, and they haven't had too many opportunities to have to change things around. But what Klopp represents at Liverpool, I think, is every bit as important to them as a Wenger or a Ferguson is to Arsenal and Man United respectively. Of course, Ferguson won the league in his last season, and he's probably the standout manager in Premier League history at the moment still now. But what Klopp represented to Liverpool is huge, because they have a lot of affection for Benitez for winning the Champions League and for lots of other reasons. But winning that league title was massive. It's absolutely massive. And he's the only manager in so long to have been able to do it for them, which is what they feel like the level they belong at. So it's massively important. But the reason it's credit to Slot as well is because if you are someone who's used to working in this field where you have to be super confident, you have to be a big ego, you have to be the main guy, the whole football operation has to revolve around you, it's probably really tempting to go in there and rip everything up and go, no, this is what we're doing now. But he's not done that. He's shown the confidence to say, I'm only going to tweak and change the things that need to be changed, and everything else I'm going to carry on. I would also say, even though Klopp was in a position where he was in the middle, I suppose. It feels a bit to me anyway like he was in the middle of rebuilding a team and bringing players in, losing players, etc., which is part of the cut and thrust of top-level football anyway, but I think Klopp was doing it. I would like to point out something I don't think's been said enough, which is just the underlying numbers at Liverpool last season were actually pretty good. They lost fewer games than Arsenal last season. Yeah, they just drew a few too many, and a couple of those at least they should have won, which would have made a big difference. And the level that Man City and Arsenal brought in together was really actually very high. So it was kind of also there for him. Yeah. It feels to me more like he's come in and adopted it almost as a custodial role more than the kind of, this is now my team. And maybe it'll change over time. But I didn't think they needed to be that good to beat Villa. I think Villa have been poor in recent weeks. They've been in a really difficult run. If you look at key players that Villa have had, playing for them recently, Ollie Watkins obviously not found any form. Morgan Rogers was really poor at Anfield as well. So
perhaps struggling with a bit of fixture congestion.
Maybe they are.
But that's why this Liverpool performance and result was so good. They can see Villa aren't that great. The game starts, Villa aren't offering too much. What do? Nice professional job here, lads. The classic professional 2-0
And it was
job.
a massive goal for Darwin Núñez, chiefly because he had so much time for it. Like, Núñez is such an instinctive player, and when he took that reasonably heavy touch past the keeper, you thought, oh, here we go again. But he actually, I actually think this is a prediction that could come back to haunt me. I think the way he scored that goal, and the fact that it was at Anfield, and the fact that it was one of those types of goals he struggled with, I think that might be really big for him, that goal.
Ooh, time will tell.
Fourth defeat in a row for Villa, by the way.
Yeah,
exactly.
So.
Stuart Pearce-esque. Coming up after this, Ipswich get their first Premier League win in 22 years.
Alan, so often when Manchester City take the lead, you might think, what's the point in trying when all you get is pain? Brighton fans wanted sunshine, but all they got in the first half was rain, and then they made a change.
As soon as I saw his face, Gary, I was a believer. Wow.
Well, back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Bit
Fucking
of BBC
public service broadcasting.
bit of BBC bants.
You're paying for that.
Oh, and I am very happy.
And when you watch Gary Lineker these days, or listen to him, you're paying in many, many ways. to crib a Libertines lyric.
Thanks very much, GB News. And thank you to a friend of the Ramble, Archie, for sending us that clip.
Yeah, thanks, Archie.
You can become a friend of the Ramble too by heading over to patreon.com/Football Ramble. You'll get access to the Discord where you can chat with us and other Ramble listeners and get ad-free episodes of the Ramble up front and on the continent. And a reminder that if you want to get in touch with your stories, questions for the mailbag, or in response to anything at all, then email us show@footballramble.com.
Was that Archie Gray who sent that in? Trying to deflect after Spurs yesterday?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Tottenham 1, Ipswich 2.
Who scored 2 goals?
Who scored 2 goals?
Ipswich.
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 Yeah. First league win of the season, and as we said, first Premier League win in 22 years. Ed Sheeran watched from the stands, and of course he helped design the victorious pink kit.
It was very pink. I was there. It was fluorescent pink.
You were there just to make sure. Were you sitting next to old Eddie Sheeran?
Well, you're right at the back in the stand beyond the goal. I saw your Insta.
Yeah. I was undercover with my Ipswich sporting mate.
First ever Insta story you've done that hasn't featured a glass or a bottle of wine in it?
No, I'm quite.
He does
football boots as well.
Food stuff.
Food as well.
Oh yeah, food as well. Yeah.
Plenty, but
How bad were Spurs, Vish?
Spurs were very bad to the point where people weren't necessarily leaving at half time, but the large
over the top.
but large chunks of people were leaving to go to the bathroom and get a drink about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they started quite solidly. Brennan Johnson probably should have scored actually quite early on with the ball over the top, crossed over the top of the defence. And then they just stopped playing. There was this weird sense of but they haven't won a game all season, so we should probably be all right.
But how many? I mean, they've gone behind so many times this season, Spurs, and to be fair, they've come back quite a bit. But it's not a good tactic.
It seems to be how they play.
Yeah, but it was interesting though when Sammy Smodic scores that overhead kick.
Oh, come on!
That was, sorry to cut in, Vish. I actually think from Brennan Johnson that was the worst defensive piece of play I've seen in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, the whole thing was
so
dreadful,
interesting take, because I was going to highlight the attacker.
Yeah, well, fair enough. You can do that in a minute. But I think if you are someone who is a top-level Premier League footballer, right, and I know he's not a defensive player, I know that's not his strength. If you watch him again, I don't know if you remember exactly what he did. He kind of stands there, looks up at the ball, flinches because Sammy Smodgic is about to do an overhead kick, and kind of puts his arms up and takes a step backwards in the penalty area.
Well,
I honestly thought it was extraordinary, Marcus. I thought honestly, I know I'm going over the top here. I thought it was the worst piece of defensive play.
You thought you'd seen just about everything.
I did. I think it's the first time I've got second-hand embarrassment from a football player in the Premier League this season. It was fucking awful. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, go and watch it and tell me what you think. Well, don't tell me what you think. I don't care.
Okay.
You go and watch it.
Vish, talk to us about the overhead kick just for a moment.
It was a lovely goal.
Jude Bellingham-esque?
Nah, come on.
It wasn't that good.
Let's settle down here.
Yeah.
But at they scored, and obviously, as you said, Spurs have come back from 1-0 down many times this season. You knew it wasn't going to happen there.
It's a strange one, wasn't it?
So many different things spoke to, I suppose, just a general unrest and even a little bit of a malaise, because there were a lot of rudimentary errors. Genuinely, about 3 times a Spurs defender let the ball bounce and lost the ball because they let it bounce, which is, as I said, rudimentary. Son, I don't think I've seen him play a worse game, and I got the sense from speaking to quite a few Spurs fans during the game and after that he's pretty much on the wane, which is sad because he's been such an enjoyable watch. There was too much on Kulusevski, as ever, and it really just we spoke before, I think maybe last week, about Spurs unravel easily because the system Angie has them playing relies on everyone being on it, and even if one person's off it, then the thing generally stutters. Now, more than one player was off it on the weekend, and obviously that is on the players, but it's happened so often, even over the course of the last 18 months or however long it has been with Postecoglou at the helm, that he needs a fail-safe. And Spurs fans, to be fair, have been saying this for a while, but it was really clear, even coming into this game, that Spurs fans expected to be on the wrong side of this one way or another.
Yeah. If you look at some of the raw data and so on, there are arguments, I would argue flimsy ones, to suggest that Spurs are doing things a bit better than they did this time last season in terms of how they sort of press in and goals scored and all this sort of stuff. But quite clearly, the most important things are results and overall performances, and it isn't quite the same as it was at the start of last season, as many people have made the point. And it's interesting when you say that a lot of them want a sort of fail-safe or a plan B or just something. And I just wonder with Ange that if he's that much of a purist, he thinks, no, we've seen what can happen when you're all on it and if we all click. And they've had moments. There's no two ways about that. They're so Jekyll and Hyde, Spurs. And I wonder if his sort of ideology or that sort of purism about playing a certain way might be his downfall here at Spurs, because you can say, no, but come on, if we do this and if we do that. We saw that, to mention Wenger again at Arsenal. Yeah, but come on, but look at the way we do this. But it's like, but sometimes actually you might not have the players to do that week in, week out, although I think they've got a very good squad. And I don't know, there's little things, it's the cut and thrust of the Premier League is very, very difficult. And I've asked this question a number of times over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to say it again. Do you think come the summer we might see them part ways?
Well, I think the fans seem ready to go all the time.
Well, it's odd because there was massive boos at half time again.
Yeah, and I've been there a couple of times this season, and it's felt similar. And I think on your just to go back to the point about you making about them going behind, etc., etc. You know, you go one goal behind. The percentage of teams that win when going a goal up is, as I can't remember what it is, but it's a lot lower than you'd expect. Teams who go 2-0 up basically always win. I mean, it's over like 90% or so. It's it's exponentially harder to come back from 2-0 down based on the stats than it is under 1-0 down. So that's part of the reason that they weren't able to do it against Ipswich. But I do think that in places they look passive. I do think sometimes they cruise and they coast. And what you've got to remember about these underlying numbers is there's a lot of Spurs fans in the media, right? A lot of journalists who support Spurs. And they will go to no end of lengths trying to tell you why actually it's this and actually it's that. Yeah. And they'll tell you that across a calendar year they had the most points and actually the underlying numbers are this. The reality is they can't put it together consistently.
But if it was that, the fans wouldn't be booing. You might be thinking the fans are a bit harsh, and I don't.
Because the fans go and watch and they see what they see, I suppose. But I'd also say that regardless of what the underlying numbers are, and I haven't seen that article, so I'll have to look it up. But last season Spurs started really well. They had loads more points than they've got now.
Well, I mean, there was talk of the title earlier on last season. Yeah. I mean, again, here it's kind of
because there's a lot of Spurs fans in the media.
I don't think any of that talk was sincere.
But the fact is that they were in a position to joke about it.
But Vish, it's also remarkable how often, in retrospect, it was never sincere in the first place. It's fucking bullshit. People always get carried away and stuff like that. It's not just Spurs. Everyone does that.
Yeah. The thing I'd say is I'm not like. If I reckon he will get the season.
I do as well. And I think he should do. I think
100%.
Because if, and it's a big if, but if it does actually click a little bit more and they can go on a bit of a run and so on, I think they really could do something because they do play very entertaining football, but it's just so Jekyll and Hyde.
But they should have basically 3 more points than you could easily look at over the last couple of weeks and find 3 more points for them that they should have right now, which will put them third. But there's a reason why they don't have those 3 points. They lose to Newcastle, who weren't, the Newcastle they are at the moment. Yep. Yeah, they
should have beaten Newcastle.
Yeah, the way they spurned their lead against Brighton as well, and then something like this, it speaks to the need of a bit of a failsafe, which is why I found Ange's comments after the match just a bit too dour, because I was like, yeah, okay, you've lost to a team who haven't won, all season.
Which was the same when they lost to Palace.
Yeah. But the way he was talking about it was too dour for me. I think the thing that I've always, given him is, I think he's been able to wear it pretty well, and the way he was that upset about it, and I think maybe in part because of the reaction when they leave a full time, when someone says something and, he has a glare back and this, that and the other. But I think the important thing for him is, and it's probably going to help with the international break because they've got Man City at the other side of it. But I think he could do with basically like chilling out a little bit because I think he's too emotive. I think also, another thing that I've noticed recently is that he does have a lot of Spurs fans on his side because they've just been so sick of the amount of twisting they've done for the last 4 or 5 years.
And I get that.
That's what I was going to add about the whole phenomenon of booing and stuff like that. And what we probably should point out before we get a lot of complaints from Spurs fans, part of the reason, at least part, possibly even the majority of the reason that the fans are booing, is because all the bullshit they've had to suck up from the ownership at Spurs over and over again, and all these excuses and all this stuff that comes out about how, we can't compete in the transfer market for years because we're having this stadium, but don't worry, when the stadium comes in, we're going to make all this money, we're going to get all these players, and it's going to be different when we bring in Mourinho because Mourinho's a proven winner. It's going to be different when we get an up-and-coming coach who's done well elsewhere in the Premier League like Nuno, and it goes to shit. Don't worry, we'll get Conte in though. He always wins. Doesn't happen. Ange's now completely different, but he always wins something in the second season, and they have to sit there paying massive prices to go to that stadium, which is a good stadium, but it's not replicated with what's on the pitch. And sometimes I think it's exciting when you go to a team that you support to watch them and never know what you're going to get. But sometimes it can be really debilitating and really frustrating. Yeah. And to see them perform like that at home against a team who aren't anywhere near as good as them really on paper is super frustrating. So I get that as well.
Yeah. Also, it's funny that Spurs should have equalised right at the end. Dominic Solanke has that chance, and even when he hesitates, he actually opens up to a much clearer chance for Son in the middle, but doesn't square it.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see Ange pick it up and sort of, in relative terms, succeed there, because a guy who is such a stickler for attacking football, you have to admire that. And as I say, so entertaining for the neutral. And I want it to happen, but I just fear it will be too up and down. But we shall see. A mention for Liam Delap, by the way. We talked a bit about the first goal.
He's had a good season.
The second goal was a lovely one. 6 goals in 10 Premier League games. It was a great move from Ipswich. But it all started with Ben Johnson's touch when the ball is booted right up in the air. It looks like it's going to go out of play. Yeah, he brings it down with. I know we're used to professional footballers nowadays with just an immaculate touch, but you've still got to give credit where credit's due. It was absolutely phenomenal. If that ball flies off his foot or it sort of bundles out of play, nobody bats an eyelid. But that was... then they got the move going.
I think... you say that no one bats an eyelid when a professional footballer does that. I think a lot of West Ham fans were watching Johnson take that down and thinking, where the fuck is that coming from?
But also, it's because so many fans play FIFA now. They're so used to touches being automatic.
That's why
it doesn't get as much. It doesn't get as much credit as it deserves.
Maybe. I was actually quietly impressed with him because I when he was like at the back end of his days at West Ham, I was like, I'll be amazed if another Premier League team picks him up. I mean, it's Ipswich have, and he's playing out on the wing, and he was solid, but Ipswich don't win that game without Omari Hutchinson. We were talking about him recently and saying, like, Ipswich have been losing well, which is, not great for them anyway. And it feels like Omari Hutchinson was doing a lot of donkey work. And on Sunday, he was doing all that and basically running rings around Spurs. Yeah. And it was partly Spurs' fault. They were giving away a lot of stupid fouls when it was like someone isolated who was basically the only advantage he was going to gain was from being fouled. But then, like, he was... I want to find it, and I'm not sure if it's in the highlights, but I'll recommend anyone to seek it out. There was a point about 85, 87 minutes in where he gets the ball from his own half and he dribbles past about 5 Spurs players. All of them, because of the way they defend, are chasing after him all the way through. And they end up creating a chance, and I think it's saved or blocked, and the ball falls to Hutchinson, and he could have a shot from an acute angle. And instead, he jinks past another player and takes it into the corner. And it was just the game awareness, the way he was able to make that huge pitch at Spurs look so small. He was a cut above everyone else yesterday, and it was great to see because we saw him flex in the Championship, and I think that was, for mine, probably the performance of the weekend. It was genuinely unbelievable.
You've been a long-term supporter of Omari Hutchinson.
Yeah, because he's quite flair. He he looks cool. He's got the little wristband straps. He wears white boots. Man. Yeah, class. Socks up.
Yeah.
It's a socks thing, isn't it? They're all the way up or they're all the way down. Yeah. Anything in between, square.
Yeah,
square. Yeah. Luke, just before we move on, Liam Delap, could he be the man? Long term to usurp Harry Kane as England's number one striker.
Unbelievable.
I know, yeah. Let's go to the break.
No. Answer the question.
I think he's had a really good season, Marcus.
Right.
And I think he scores a great amount of different types of goals. Some of the goals he scores are absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
And I think he's been a bright spot for Ipswich.
You're absolutely right. And will he do it for England in the future?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
If his dad...
I can see him lifting a trophy for England pretty soon.
Come on. Which England team? Under 21?
So Vish was going to say something about his dad?
If his dad goes to watch him, he won't sing the anthem, will he?
No, exactly. I can see his dad getting the World Cup trophy off him and doing a really long throw into Salt Bay's hands.
To Dublin. Yeah, this one for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Carsley's going to catch it.
All right, coming up after this, a referee in Japan gets his yellow card stuck. Oh, dear. Right, everybody, before we get to that hilarity, should give a little mention for Chelsea 1, Arsenal 1.
Lovely stuff. Great game.
I really enjoyed it.
Really
It was a good game. It was
the two games on TV yesterday were brilliant.
Would you say it was it was a spicy game. I mean, Arteta was saying that you need to show your teeth a bit more. An angry game. I think I would have called.
You know what?
one.
It reminded me of like how they used to be.
Do you know what I thought, Vish, when I saw this? I thought
Sounds like that gave me a bit insight of what it's like to break up from a relationship with Vish. Then,
yeah, I thought to myself,
you reminded me of what I used to be. Cheers, Vish. That was well emotional.
I thought we've got our game back. Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard were fit to start for Arsenal. Odegaard, of course, assisted Martinelli with that Arsenal goal. He made a difference, Vish. You can't deny it.
Yeah, we
Sorry,
said...
were you about to deny it?
No, not at all.
Can't.
Yeah.
We decided that you can't.
See that one?
Yeah, lovely. Well played, Marcus.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. It's amazing how difficult passing forward is in the middle of the pitch.
Right.
And I think you only realise it when Odegaard or players like Odegaard are not there.
Yeah.
And then when
Murray Hutchison, for example.
Exactly.
He does a lot of running. Yeah.
Maybe Odegaard watched that game and thought, I'll tell you what. Give me a
Mine, we've got to warm up. Hold on.
Gives me an
Murray's
idea.
got the ball. Murray's got the ball.
Yeah.
They might hang on here.
But you are right, though. I think being very positive and being effective with that positivity in that area of the pitch is gold dust.
And similarly, someone who didn't do it as well as they have done, Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Arsenal did a really good job on Cole Palmer,
Yeah.
I have to say. One of the things I noted down from the game was that they contained Palmer pretty well. I mean, he got to the point where because he's quite a basic bloke, he got really frustrated. He ended up trying to smash that mental free kick in for miles out. They just blazed.
You say that like he was in front of the door that said pull and was pushing it all game.
Well,
yeah.
Palmer's going to...
right.
But it is an interesting thing because obviously we knew Palmer's quality before this season began. But... you know, when he scores those 4 goals and when he's just got the freedom of the pitch and so on, it reminds everybody, and the teams that can do it effectively will absolutely have almost like a bespoke plan for him.
Totally, and Arsenal are super...
And he's going to have to deal with that.
And Arsenal are a very, very well organised team.
Yes.
Like for the faults that they've got and for the amount that they've in recent games huffed and puffed a bit. Like for example, against Inter in the Champions League, Inter are a good team. It's away from home. They were quite predictable going forward.
Yep.
But they always seem to be pretty well organised. And I thought they clearly had a plan to deal with Palmer. It worked quite well. But
that's the next step for Palmer to try and go right.
Well, it was absolutely. It was a tactically really interesting game because Chelsea then, towards the end of the game, decided they wanted to play on the break, even though they're at home. Kind of let Arsenal have the ball and tried to give them something to think about on the break. Arsenal dominated the closing stages, but obviously couldn't find that breakthrough. I would also just like to say that given where Chelsea were in the summer. It's almost becoming a theme of the show today, isn't it? You know, there's a new manager comes in, there's an excuse for it to be a bit incoherent and not work very well. In fact, some people in this studio, myself, absolutely in the vanguard of it, predicted it might be a bit difficult for them at the very least. For Maresca to get Chelsea up to this level against Arsenal, who have been the standout second-best team in the Premier League last couple of seasons, and really, I don't think they're unlucky not to win it. I thought it was a fair reflection, but they could have won it, and that's an incredible achievement given where they've come from, given the amount of players they've brought in, and bar, an aberration. In the League Cup recently, they've actually been pretty good. I mean, big confidence builder beating the might of FC Noah midweek as well.
Well, I did think this because Mikel Arteta after the game said, "I'm very disappointed, but very proud." Which is slightly confusing, but okay, we'll go with it. We have dominated one of the best teams in Europe, but we don't get the results.
You're still thinking of the FC Noah game, right?
Yeah.
Does he not think? Does he think that Chelsea are doing that in the Champions League?
Well, to be
Does he
fair,
not realise they're in the Europa League? 8-0 in the Champions.
to be fair,
They're in the Conference League.
The Conference League. Sorry, even I'm getting confused. He's thinking to himself, "How are they getting these results?"
How big does he think the new Champions League group stage is? I know, everyone's in it.
Yeah, they're still
But
playing.
I thought it was a great game. It was really intriguing. There's a load of good battles. Saka versus Cucurella was a really good battle. I thought Malagusto was good on the opposite side as well.
Pedro Neto scored a lovely one,
He's
didn't he?
a great goal. And I think the one thing about Neto is that Neville seemed to say, I think it was Neville in the commentary, seemed to say that he thought Neto just needed to build his confidence. And that was quite interesting to hear someone say that. Because my assessment of Neto is that he seems to be a bit too much head down. He's a bit too kind of head down and doesn't really think about it. Maybe it's a bit of both, I don't know. But that was a brilliant goal.
Yeah, I think Neto's got it in him. Obviously, nice assist for Nicholas Jackson the other week and so on. But
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. But I mean, my goodness, he's got talent, and I think when
his numbers aren't actually that impressive this season.
No, but I think they will improve. But when you say about Chelsea when they were playing on the break, because they've got so much pace up there and they've got people who can supply the passes, you think, against the Arsenal, who are a better side, it's not the worst of ideas, of course, but I think Chelsea going forward are an attacking threat. So a point apiece. Arsenal really could have done with a win there because of the sticky patch they're in.
I mean, they were both chasing a win by the end.
Yeah.
And
in their own way.
Yeah. And a lot was made of that chance at the end. But I think it would have been offside for the player who crossed the ball for Arsenal. But
I felt like it was frustrating that that quick free kick Havertz goal was given offside, and it was frustrating because Havertz didn't really need to be offside. It was really quick thinking, and Chelsea were fuming because they thought he hadn't blown the whistle, but he had. And I thought if that had stood, that would have made it more interesting game even.
I want you to answer me a question and answer it properly.
Is it about England again?
I can engineer it that way. If you want.
Don't bother.
Okay. Are Arsenal, now that they are 9 points behind Slot and Liverpool, are they out of the title race this early?
I don't think you can say they are, but I think it's a really, really difficult thing to overhaul. They're 9 points behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say so. No. I think it's too much to go.
Do you think they're still? Do you think they're out of the title race?
I don't think they're out of it.
Okay,
but
interesting.
Okay. I think it's not in their hands.
So a supplementary question then. So they're not out of it because they're only 9 points behind Liverpool.
Right, so you want to ask about Nottingham Forest?
Fulham are 10 points behind Liverpool. Are they out of the
Absolutely
title race?
not.
Right.
Here we go.
Oh,
Speller and Emil Smith Rowe.
You are.
You know what?
It.
I like it, and I like it, and I like it, and I like it.
Lovely.
Yeah. And talking about socks, Smith Rowe socks are all the way down.
Yeah.
So he's all right then.
Lovely player.
He's fine by you.
He is all right. Before we
shoot
go,
don't shoot everyone else.
Come on. Before we go, did you see the video from the J League that went viral this weekend? A referee had to get two players to help him get his yellow card out after it got stuck in his wallet. I mean, I suppose he didn't really get them.
His wallet.
What's his wallet for?
It was a little pouch.
Card holder.
Oh, no, don't throw that away. It's a Costco card.
Little pouch. Little pouch.
Because it was a kangaroo refereeing the game.
Yeah. You could technically speaking, I suppose, if you did get it confused with your wallet, you could use an Esso petrol station card for a red card, maybe. It's hard to think what you could use for a yellow. There's not that many yellow
condom.
Shell, a condom.
What are you talking about? It's flimsy.
Sorry, everyone. Vish wants everyone to know he's a bit of a shagger still.
A pineapple flavoured condom shagger.
No, but people used
Condoms
to keep
come in all different flavours now, don't they?
Do you like curry? People used to keep condoms in their wallet. It's just
I think if you stick to petrol stations, you could go Shell for a yellow, Esso for a red.
Yeah. What was the colour card? Did they say it was a
blue? Wasn't it? Blue card.
Was it blue
for a sin bin?
No. Sin bin's like an orange card, wasn't it? So it's
orange
a Monzo card.
Yeah.
I thought it was blue. I really passionately believe it was blue.
Because if you mix red and yellow together.
Yeah, I know that's what you're saying.
Ain't blue, baby.
You're thinking of Durex, mate. That's what it is.
That's what you're thinking, Luke Moore. Anyway, so two players helped him to get his yellow card out.
He booked one of them, didn't he?
And then he booked one of them that helped him.
It was Gaza-esque, wasn't it?
It was a little bit. I don't know what it was for, because I'll be honest with you, I watched that clip. I didn't watch the wider game. So maybe...
I'm amazed it's even in here, to be honest.
Well, we can talk about MLS if you want.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah.
No.
Right, okay.
Biggest upset.
Oh, no, not into Miami. Oh.
Biggest upset in MLS history, apparently. And you don't want to talk about
America's got quite a small history, though, isn't it? So no, it does. It does.
I'd love to hear you say that.
I love it when he doubles down like that.
Exactly.
It does. It does. I tell her all the time she's little. It's fine.
Okay, fine. Okay. Did you see Brad Guzan getting stuck in the net
that was funny.
like a little fish?
Like a starfish trying to flap his way out.
And then while he was in there, one of the Inter Miami players
Suarez.
went up to him. Oh, it was Suarez, wasn't it? Yeah, he goes up to him and starts pointing at him. Oh, but who had
bite you at the net?
Who had the yeah, exactly. Who had the last laugh?
Yeah, Fizzer.
Brad,
he did.
Yeah.
It was the biggest upset in MLS history. So we've got to give it its flowers.
You do. You absolutely do.
But can I, before we go, can I just ask the Paul Gascoigne thing? So people who aren't old enough to remember, the referee dropped his yellow card.
That's right.
And Gazza picked it up. And pretended to book him for a laugh. I don't know if you guys know much about Gazza, but he liked to laugh.
Yes.
People don't talk about it much.
And fishing.
He likes fish. And he pretended to book the referee.
Yeah.
And the referee then booked him for dissent.
Yeah. But like the J League player who got booked, Gazza just had a little laugh. He was just like, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to referees as well, Mike Dean was on the comms for Chelsea Arsenal. Do we need that?
Who would you rather, Deeney or Gallagher?
Neither. At one point,
That's not the question.
At one point, they asked Mike Dean about the protocol around not booking someone or not giving a foul for something, and Mike Dean said, "Yeah, but the first one's free, isn't it?" Like, what level of analysis is that for an ex-professional referee? Sort of thing that you hear that down the pub. I know people talk a lot about pub analysis, but you would hear that down the pub.
You would.
It's the sort of thing your old man would say in the 80s.
Yep.
Mike Dean is saying it on a Sky Sports broadcast as an ex-top level referee.
Yeah, and the point of having him there is to
cut through that shit.
Yeah, is to almost be the anchor of like, no, but these are actually the laws of the game.
We cannot, as broadcasters, get into a situation where we can have referees on shows, because it either turns into a Peter Walton situation where everyone just hammers him and bullies him and it's unsavoury. You have a Mike Dean situation who just loves himself so much that he falls foul of the exact stereotypes that he's supposed to be popping. Or you have like Howard Webb doing it 2 months later with Michael Owen and no one watches it.
No.
Referees cannot be on telly unless they're on the pitch.
You need Uncle. Christina Uncle.
Oh, okay, yeah, she was great.
She was brilliant.
To be fair, she was exactly what we need, and I fully agree with that.
There you go. Oh, you see, come crawling back to terrestrial TV.
Could she win the World Cup for England?
If we paid her enough money, she should probably have a bit of influence. Yes.
No, you can't say that.
She's
a pro. She's an absolute pro. She'd never be effective.
But you would not bribe an official.
No.
Okay, well, I mean, she's not a referee, and she's not English.
Yeah.
Could she win the World Cup for England?
Yeah.
You're damn right she could.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.